What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my YouTube channel. I really appreciate you all tuning in. And in today's video, it's about time you learn how to flip a house, A to Z. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you. My name is Priyesh Patel. I own a fix and flip company as well as a development company. And at this point, I flipped so many houses, I can't even count anymore. So I feel extra qualified to be able to share all of this information with you. And before we get started, go ahead and like this video because I absolutely know that you are going to get insane value out of this video. So let's get into it. Let's talk about financing first, or the different methods of purchasing the property. Typically, when you're dealing with fix and flips, there are four main ways that investors purchase properties. One is cash, second is hard money, third is private money, and fourth is gap lending, which is just a combination of hard and private money. Now let's define what all of those terms mean. Excuse me. A cash purchase is when you buy a property without a mortgage or any other type of financing. These cash deals, they create very simplified transactions and quicker closes because there's no need for the lenders and all the requirements and red tape that they have. And cash buyers they typically have more negotiating power because the seller is viewing this offer as a fast and reliable one. Buying cash is great if you have boatloads of money, but for us regular people, we use loans. So let's get into the loan section. Now, the first one is hard money. Hard money is a short-term loan you can get for about 1 to 2 years, and it typically has a higher interest rate, usually in the double-digit range. The lender's also going to charge you miscellaneous fees and points. And hard money lenders usually charge more points than a traditional lender. Typically, investors use these loans to flip properties because with these types of loans, there is a little less red tape than getting a standard loan. So you can close quickly and there are loose lending requirements in comparison to a traditional bank, kind of like what I just said with the red tape. These loans are mostly based on the property, not you, the borrower. So if you have a good deal, the hard money lender will likely finance the project even if you have limited experience. That's the really cool part. And typically the credit score is considered, but it's not the main factor for these kinds of lenders. So some of the cons for these loans are the high interest rate, the very short loan length, typically 1 to 2 years, like I said, and then the high fees compared to a conventional loan. You can find hard money lenders by Googling hard money lenders and the city you live in, or just through referrals from investors. There's even a hard money lender directory on biggerpockets.com. In fact, I found my first lender, who I still use to this day, off of BiggerPockets. So also, you're going to need to get pre-approved for this loan. Pre-approval is just a way of the lender vetting you and just saying, yes, you are qualified to be able to go to buy properties at X price, $500,000, for example. Now, let's get into private lending. So a private money lender is just a really fancy way of saying borrowing money from friends, family, or any person from that matter to buy real estate. This is my favorite type of financing because terms are whatever you and the person lending you money agree to, and the loan is collateral based, meaning the loan is secured by the property, not you. Now, there are a ton of ways to find private money. My top two are building credibility online on social media and then asking your audience to partner up with you on deals. And the second way is to go to your friends, family, and expand your network as well, your sphere, right? You can structure private money as debt, as equity, and hybrid. It's super cool, and I'm geeking out over this right now. I'm going to explain those three right now. So debt is when the private money lender loans you the money and you pay back the lender with interest. This is kind of like a hard money loan, right? Equity is when the private money lender gets part of the ownership in the deal and gets paid a percentage of ownership from the profit. So they're not treated like a lender, right? Equity owner. Now, a hybrid, I'm guessing that you're probably figuring this out by now, is when you pay the private lender a mix of debt and equity, a hybrid, right? For example, you can pay a lender, say, an 8% interest rate and then give them 5% ownership in the property so they can collect proceeds at the end. Now that we discussed debt, equity, hybrid, let's go ahead and go through pros and cons of each of those three options. Excuse me. Now with debt, the pro is that you don't have to split the profits with anyone. The con is that you can become over leveraged. For example, the reason why lenders don't fund 100% of purchases is to protect themselves. It makes sense, right? Let's say you purchase a property for $300,000, then the lender funds 100% of your deal, the full $300,000. And let's say the market happens to take a downturn, you lose your job, and you have to sell the house. And let's say your house is now worth $270,000. Well, now you can't sell the property because you can't repay the lender their full debt. Now, when you work with private money lenders, you'll need to sign one of two documents. And it's really depending on how you want to structure the deal. The first document is called a promissory note, and this is a personal guarantee or a promise to pay back the lender. This is a last resort if the property cannot repay the lender back. The second is a JV agreement or a joint venture agreement. This is a document spelling out the partnership between you and the private lender for the specific deal. Now, always consult with a qualified attorney to draw up the appropriate documents. Every situation is different, okay? Disclaimer. Now, let's move on to gap lending. Have you ever heard of those crazy stories where people like me and other real estate people online are saying you can buy real estate for $0 out of pocket? Well, this is where gap lending comes in, people. You combine hard money and private money. Now, let's get into an example. Let's say you get a hard money loan and the lender is requiring a 10% down payment. Instead of you coming out of pocket with the 10% down, you can go to a private money lender to loan you the 10% down to bridge the gap of the funds. The pro is that you can buy real estate with little to no money down, but a con is that since you're 100% leveraged, you need to make sure the business plan is sound so that you don't go underwater on the property. And underwater is just when you owe more money to lenders than what your property could sell for, right? In the example that I gave previously. Now, there are a few other ways you can purchase flips like creative financing or a 203k loan, but I'm just going to stick with these four main types for this video. Now, it will be helpful to start the financing process with a lender before you search for deals. Okay? Let's say you are working with a hard money lender. The first time you work with them, it will take some time for the lender to vet you. So you need to be sure to connect with these lenders early, let them know what your plans are so that they can have plenty of time to vet you, aka pre-approve you for a loan, because you don't want to be scrambling last minute if you have a great deal on the table. Now, once you have your financing in order, it's time to start analyzing deals and find the one. Now, hit me up if you want this deal calculator, and I'm more than happy to share it with you. I have a video on YouTube as well, and it's called Deal Evaluation and Property Analysis. Go ahead and check it out. I'm going through the deal calculator and evaluating a deal in real time, explaining all the terms. So go ahead and check that video out. So that's just a little tidbit. So now we're going to move on with the rest of the video. Once you've analyzed a ton of deals and found the one, it's time to make an offer on the property, get the offer accepted, and enter escrow. The escrow process is where a company handles the transaction between the buyer and the seller. These companies are called escrow companies. As soon as you have the signed contract, you want to reach out to an escrow company to open escrow. These are all the lingo, right? Besides facilitating the transaction, the escrow company is responsible for a few more items, such as collecting the lender documents, sending out buyer and seller opening packages, and properly transferring ownership to the new buyer, you. Escrow starts the moment you sign the contract. Escrow is an important time to do your due diligence on the property, collect renovation bids, and double check that this is a deal you actually want to do. And during escrow, you're going to want to walk the property with a few contractors, collect renovation bids while you're doing that. Now, I suggest you get at least 2 to 3 bids. This will help you learn, first and foremost, as well as compare contractor pricing. Pick the best contractor. Pick the best contractor before you purchase the property. The goal is to start renovations day one of owning the property. You'll also want to create a lookbook for the contractor. This is all done in escrow before you even start the renovations or purchase the property, because you just want to make sure you're thorough and organized while you're doing this. Cool. A lookbook, going back to that, is design inspiration with materials, with color schemes and layouts, so that everyone is on the same page for the project vision. I still create lookbooks to this day. Now, picking design inspo can be hard, but there are ways you can do this. One is through Pinterest. Another way, and this is actually my new personal favorite, is through AI generated designs. And the third is looking at renovated comps, if there are any. And finally, just think about what the end buyer would want. Would they want that built-in microwave? Would they want a 6-burner versus a 4-burner stove? You want to think about those things. Cool. Now let's talk a little bit more about contractors. Best way to find contractors is through referrals. You need to network with investors, property managers, agents, and any other players in the real estate space. You can also go on websites like Yelp, Angie's List, Home Advisor. There's a bunch of them out there. Now, once you've picked the right contractor and the renovation has started, you want to manage the construction, the renovation, however you want to phrase it, right? Management is so important. Cost overruns they happen a dime a dozen, right? This is why it's so important. Contractors are almost always delayed on their timelines, and costs almost always go over if you are not carefully watching the project. In fact, even if you are carefully watching the project, costs almost always go over. Stuff always pops up. So you've got to be hands-on in management. So with that being said, it's important to stop by the job site at least 1 to 3 times a week, depending on the speed of progress. Once you start to level up, you can hire out a project manager to do this for you. But many of you are going to have to do this yourselves at first. Another item that you need to manage is your payments to the contractor. Ideally, you want to preset milestones in the renovation where the contractor will get paid, so everyone is clear on what the timelines are. You want to be sure to never give the contractor too large of a payment up front. You can get burned easy by doing this. Now that the renovation is complete, you'll want to prep the property for sale. First, you need to do a final walkthrough with the contractor. If you spot any deficiencies in the house, you're going to need to mark them with a piece of blue painter's tape and notify the contractor. You also need to create a punch list for the contractor so that everything is clear. A punch list is basically when you do a final walkthrough of the property or a pre-final walkthrough of the property, and you basically just bullet point list of, hey, this handle doesn't work, the doorknob's messed up, clean this area. So that's the punch list. It's a list of items that the contractor needs to do before your final walkthrough. So that's why you need to create it. It's so important. And then once the punch list is completed, it's time to do your final walkthrough. And barring no other complications, the final walkthrough is complete. You need to stage the property. Staging is an added expense, but it is necessary to get the highest and best price for your property. Think about it. A potential buyer comes into your house, and while it is renovated and clean, it's empty and hard for the buyer to visualize their family living in this space. That's why I'm harping on this so hard. A couple years ago, I didn't stage anything because you didn't need to. Properties were selling like hotcakes. But now that there's increased competition, there's honestly less supply, and there's not a lot of buying power out there. So you have to put your best foot forward as far as first impressions and things like that. Now, stage your house with furniture, art, and a ton of other items to create that visual for your end buyer. And if you need help doing this, there are staging companies out there. It's very simple. It's an additional expense, but I'm telling you, it's worth it. Now, before you actually list the property, it's time that you do a final comping or getting a new ARV for the property. The market may have changed since you originally found the ARV for your property. And while using your listing agent as a backbone to identify the price, it doesn't hurt for you to rerun comps and see if you need to adjust your price or their price, whatever it is. New comps can't come out all the time and they affect property value. For example, there's a property we're doing in Santa Barbara right now, and originally we underwrote this thing for $2.75 million. There wasn't a lot of comps out there, but we felt pretty confident we could get that. Now, fast forward, this is a big project, so it's been over a year. 2 new comps came out, putting our value at 3.4 to 3.5 million. It's absolutely bananas. We did not account for the additional 3 to 400K on top of ARV, which is an amazing thing, right? It goes both ways. It might come lower in a year, but we ended up being able to ride that wave. Now, let's finally address working with an agent to sell your property. Unless you have a real estate license and want to sell the property yourself, which I still don't really recommend unless you want to save money, I would highly, highly suggest you list the property with an experienced agent. Choosing the right agent is key. Not all agents are created equal. They can make or break your deal. So choose wisely. Get referrals, and even go on websites like Zillow and search Agent Finder and the top agents in your area. A good agent will guide you through the whole sale process, A to Z, and get you the highest and best offer for your needs. Now, the video's done. I hope you got a ton of value in that video. And if you did, like I think you did, go ahead and like this video if you haven't already, as well as share it with someone who might need to hear this. So I'll see you next time.